calls for a clean fight in the Tory leadership campaign as Andrea Leadsom denies suggesting she'd make a better leader because she's a mother. Her remarks to the Times newspaper were criticised by supporters of her rival Theresa May, who doesn't have children. But Mrs Leadsom's hit back at the way her comments have been portrayed.
I am disgusted at the way this has been presented. I want to be crystal clear that everyone has an equal stake in our society and in the future of our country.
Also on tonight's programme, Jeremy Corbyn will face a leadership challenge from his former shadow cabinet colleague, Angela Eagle. After the murders of police officers in Dallas, President Obama calls the killer a demented individual who wasn't representative of African Americans. And seventh heaven for Serena Williams with another Wimbledon title and a record-equalling 22nd Grand Slam.
It makes the victory even sweeter to know how hard I worked for it. And thank you guys for being out here to see number 22. This is awesome. So I love you guys so much.
Hello, very good evening to you. The Conservative leadership campaign has been hit by controversy after one of the two candidates, Andrea Leadsom, appeared to suggest in a newspaper interview that being a mother would make her a better Prime Minister. Her rival Theresa May is childless and her supporters strongly criticise the comments, calling them offensive. Mrs Leadsom, however, has said she was misrepresented by the Times newspaper and has asked for a retraction. Our political correspondent Eleanor Garnier has more.
So much more to give.
The outsider in the race, the Eurosceptic energy minister who's exciting traditional Tories. But the mum of three's facing criticism for an interview in the Times where she suggested being a parent made her a better choice for Prime Minister.
I don't really know Theresa very well, but I'm sure she will be really, really sad that she doesn't have children. But genuinely, I feel being a mum means you have a very real stake in the future of our country, a tangible stake. You know, I mean, she possibly has nieces, nephews, lots of people, but I have children.
This morning, outside her home in Northamptonshire, she defended her comments.
I was repeatedly asked about my children, and I repeatedly made it clear that I did not want this to be in any way a feature of the campaign. I am disgusted at the way this has been presented. I want to be crystal clear that everyone has an equal stake in our society and in the future of our country.
But being a mum was a big part of her message during the referendum campaign.
I ran financial services businesses for 25 years and I did a stint as city minister, and I'm a mum.
It's clear Andrea Leadsom wasn't trying to be cruel to Theresa May, but it has shown her inexperience and some say her lack of judgment, so crucial if you want to be Prime Minister. Her team are making an official complaint to the Times, but the journalist who did the interview is standing by her story.
I don't think it's gutter journalism, I just think it's journalism, it's accurate journalism. I asked a question, she answered it, I reported what she said. You know, she's trying to become Prime Minister of this country. Judgment and character matters as well as policy.
Yesterday, Theresa May released this pledge for a clean campaign. There was no official response from her today, but she reposted it on social media.
Hiya.
Despite appeals for unity after a fractious referendum campaign, the Conservative leadership race is already off to a controversial start. Eleanor Garnier, BBC News.
Well, the Labour Party now faces its own leadership contest after the former Shadow Business Secretary, Angela Eagle, announced she will launch a formal challenge to Jeremy Corbyn. It comes after talks between Labour's Deputy Leader, Tom Watson, and union leaders broke down over their continued support for Mr Corbyn. Our political correspondent Ian Watson reports.
The band at the Durham Miners' Gala was far more harmonious than the relations between the Labour leader and his own MPs. Most want him to go, but their apparently unstoppable force has met an immovable object. Defiantly, Jeremy Corbyn told an audience of trade unionists he'd not be pressured into resigning.
There is no pressure on me. None whatsoever. Real pressure is when you don't have enough money to feed your kids. When you don't have a roof over your head.
That went down well here, but he will now face a leadership challenge at Westminster. The former Shadow Business Secretary Angela Eagle confirmed she'll now trigger a contest. All week she'd been pushing Jeremy Corbyn to go voluntarily.
Jeremy needs to stand down. I have the support to run and resolve this impasse. Jeremy Corbyn needs to resign.
She'd been waiting to see if the Labour Deputy Leader, Tom Watson, could persuade his friends in the trade union movement to push Jeremy Corbyn aside. Today he concluded there was no point in further talks because his leader wasn't listening. But soon after, the General Secretary of Britain's biggest union accused Labour's Deputy Leader of an act of sabotage and a deeply disingenuous manoeuvre. Just under 2 weeks ago, 8 out of 10 of Jeremy Corbyn's Labour MPs voted for a motion of no confidence in him. So you might wonder why he hasn't been challenged already. Well, the real fear here at Westminster is he might win any subsequent contest. That's because it's the party members who make that decision and not the MPs. Another potential leadership challenger, Owen Smith, has talked openly of the danger of his party splitting, but others say a contest can't be avoided.
I nominated Jeremy, and many people in my constituency were involved in not just voting for Jeremy, but supporting him, being active in his campaign. And since last September, all they've seen is stagnation at the top. If you go on the Labour Party website, there's no policies. There's literally nothing that says what Jeremy is trying to achieve for our country, for our parties.
Tonight, Angela Eagle was preparing for the formal launch of her leadership bid on Monday. The ensuing contest could decide not just her future, but that of the entire Labour Party.
Well, as you can see, Ian joins us now. What happens next?
It's interesting, isn't it? I suppose reporters on rival networks, Kate, might sometimes exaggerate a little bit, but to be perfectly honest, I think this is the biggest crisis that Labour has faced since the 1980s when the SDP split away from the party. Not only did we have Owen Smith there, a former Shadow Cabinet Minister, talking about the dangers of a split, but also Lynn McCluskey, leader of Unite, Labour's biggest funder, saying the party is now in great peril. What happens next is that a leadership challenge will be triggered. If Jeremy Corbyn wins any contest, some more moderate members of the Labour Party might well decide to leave. In the interim, Labour's ruling National Executive has to decide on the rules of that contest, and it's not even clear if Jeremy Corbyn would be automatically on the ballot for that contest, or like his opponent would have to go out and seek nominations from other MPs. Now, it sounds like a boring technical point, but it's absolutely crucial. Given the strength of feeling against him at Westminster, they might decide they don't want him on the ballot. If that's the case, the party membership might be in open revolt, and you'd see a very nasty civil war in the Labour Party breaking out all across the summer and all across the time when the Conservative Party are fighting their own leadership contest.
Oh, indeed, Ian, thank you. Barack Obama says America is not as divided as some have suggested in the aftermath of the shooting of 5 policemen in Dallas. The president said there was sorrow and anger, but also unity. He described the gunman, Micah Johnson, as a demented individual and said he didn't represent African Americans. Our correspondent James Cook is in Texas for us this evening and has more. James.
Yes, Kate. Well, this attack here in Dallas, which left 5 police officers and the gunman dead, has led to a tremendous amount of heartbreak, but it's also fueled a sense that this is a country on edge, bitterly divided, not least between supporters and opponents of the police. And today, the president did his best to try to play down those fears.
In Texas and across the United States, the men and women in blue are mourning. The attack here in Dallas was the deadliest on law enforcement since 9/11. Denise Sacido's husband, Mike, was an officer here for 10 years.
And every night he came home, and that was my prayer that he came. And he did. By God's good graces. We need to start loving one another instead of hating one another.
The killer, Micah Johnson, was a US Army reservist who served in Afghanistan. His social media postings reveal an interest in black militant groups, and he told police he wanted to kill white police officers. And this was a crime driven by hate.
They're shooting right now, and
There's an officer down. It's coming from the right over there.
The gunman turning a peaceful protest at police killings of black men into an act of violent revenge. In the 25-year-old's suburban home, they found more guns and bullets, bomb-making equipment, and a journal of combat tactics. At a NATO summit in Poland, for the third time in as many days, President Obama appealed for calm back home.
As painful as this week has been, I firmly believe that America is not as divided as some have suggested.
But in many places, the US does feel divided. In Atlanta, in the state of Georgia, and elsewhere, thousands of Americans are still taking to the streets to protest against the police. And in Dallas, they're preparing to say goodbye to 5 officers who lost their lives in the line of duty.
At times, it feels like this has become the motif of the United States. This time, the shrine is dominated by the colour blue, but the flowers, the prayers, the heartbreaking messages are the same. This, somehow, has become routine. James Cook, BBC News, Dallas.
The UK Anti-Doping Agency has launched an investigation into claims that British athletes paid for performance-enhancing drugs whilst training in Kenya. Kenyan police have already launched an inquiry after 2 doctors and a self-styled medic were secretly filmed by the Sunday Times newspaper making claims that they had been paid by British athletes to administer a banned blood-boosting drug. UK Anti-Doping said the evidence presented by the Sunday Times is of grave concern and significant interest, and it was being treated with the utmost importance and urgency. Now, David Cameron says MPs will decide in just over a week on whether Britain should renew its nuclear defence weapons system. The vote on the proposal to replace the 4 ageing Vanguard nuclear submarines with their Trident missiles will be held on the 18th of July. OK, it is time for the sport, as you can see, with Damien Johnson at the BBC Sports Centre. Hi.
Hi Kate, good evening to you. Serena Williams has won the women's singles at Wimbledon for a 7th time. She beat Angelique Kerber of Germany in straight sets and has now equalled Steffi Graf's record of 22 Grand Slam titles. As David Ornstein reports.
Her latest shot at history. For Serena Williams, the shadow of Steffi Graf looms large. A year spent chasing her Grand Slam singles record, now a 4th chance to match it. Among those to deny her, today's opponent Angelique Kerber. Graf is Kerber's inspiration, double motivation. If the quality of past finals has been doubted, this one delivered. In the next rankings, these will be the world's top 2. But Williams is #1, and look at what it meant to win set 1. Kerber battled from the baseline and even engaged in close combat. Williams was down, but perhaps that was simply a rehearsal for her celebration. The ghost of Graf finally laid to rest. 22 and counting.
It's been incredibly difficult not to think about it. I had a couple of tries this year. I lost to 2 great opponents, one actually being Angelique. So, but you know, it makes the victory even sweeter to know how hard I worked for it. And thank you guys for being out here to see number 22. This is awesome.
But records exist not only to be equal, but broken. So can we expect more to tumble?
Serena's not done, in my opinion. She's matched the record of Steffi Graf, but she's definitely not over. She wants to break more records.
With the singles sorted, Serena was soon back on court, joining forces with her sister Venus.
And they did exactly what they do best, winning a 14th Grand Slam doubles title and their 6th here. The Williams sisters dominating the day and women's tennis. David Ornstein, BBC News, Wimbledon.
A British pair has won the men's wheelchair doubles title at the All England Club. Alfie Hewitt and Gordon Reid came from a set down to beat top seed Stéphane Houdet and Nicolas Pfeiffer from France on a tie-break. Tomorrow, Reid competes in Wimbledon's first men's wheelchair singles final. Lewis Hamilton will start tomorrow's British Grand Prix from pole. The Mercedes driver beat his teammate and title rival Nico Rosberg into second place. Hamilton now has 4 British Grand Prix poles, equalling Sir Stirling Moss. Rosberg heads into the race 11 points clear in the championship. Chris Froome has won stage 8 of the Tour de France and moved into the overall lead. The 2-time Tour winner and defending champion took the yellow jersey with a stunning downhill attack. It was the 5th stage victory for a British rider this Tour, following 3 for Mark Cavendish and then Steve Cummings yesterday. Another Briton, Adam Yates, is second overall behind Froome. And there have been 2 bronze medals for Great Britain at the European Athletics Championships in Amsterdam this evening. Julian Reid claimed his first senior international medal. That was in the triple jump. Steph Twell came third in the 5,000 metres. And that, Kate, is all the sport for now.
Well, Damien, thank you very much. And just before we go, Britain's oldest person, Gladys Hooper from the Isle of Wight, has died at the age of 113. The former teacher, concert pianist and great-grandmother became the oldest person in the world to have a hip replacement last year. Mrs Hooper was born in London in 1903. The same year, of course, the Wright brothers made the first powered aircraft flight. OK, well, you can see more on all of today's stories on the BBC News channel. Thanks for joining us. That's all from us. Good night. Bye-bye.